setting an example of what's going to happen. This is like the first, I think, event of this size, maybe. I'm actually not sure, but I think that you guys have supported that it's going to be amazing and made by the community.
And I think
sorry,
that's the emphasis. Oh, no worries.
Sorry.
And I think like that's the emphasis is like, when I say that point of like the community is not about you, and of course in that sense I'm talking about myself and Webflow as an entity, is like obviously Webflow is like one of those themes that brings people together, but it is about the people that are building on it and what it is that they are building more so than the tool itself. Our marketing channels are about us. The community is about how the tool brings people together. And I think that distinction is really different, and why I am excited about events popping up that are hosted and are getting people to connect and really level up together and find that first person or finds that second person that they can also help. And I think like that's our responsibility as we continue to scale community and the programs that we endorse.
That's so cool. Okay, guys, so we are a little bit over the half-hour mark. So go ahead and unmute yourselves if you want to talk to Emily, ask any questions. I know you guys probably have 1,000. So go ahead and unmute yourself so you can meet her, chat, and yeah, just mingle.
Hey, Emily.
Hello.
Who was that?
Yes, you. In this Webflow community, you have, my understanding, you have in-person meetups and online meetups. Is that right?
Yep, that's correct.
Yeah, but unfortunately, I haven't heard of the community, Webflow community specifically, until this San Francisco meetup showed up and you people marketed a lot. So what are the things that you people usually do in this community other than this new San Francisco meetup? Because the other day I remember I applied to be a host for a community. You people have an in-person community, right? And people that do not have in their country a meetup or a community can apply, right?
Yeah. So I think to be clear. Oh, sorry. I think like to be clear, the Webflow community is so much more than just our meetup program, and definitely not just the San Francisco meetup, I assure you. I think like the very much so, like the community is like everything from like, we would even argue like Made in Webflow and the sharing around that is also community. Like certifications and us making sure that you guys have shareable credentials and you guys have ways to measure your expertise, also part of community and expanding beyond that. There are so many ways that expands. I think to answer your question specifically about meetups, is our meetup program is going through a crazy overhaul right now, where we are actually building a Webflow built CMS that helps to promote, to surface, to get all of those events built on Webflow, finally. And of course, I think other things around like those that are in the queue for applications, we review those on a monthly basis. However, our biggest priority right now has been to migrate the existing global leaders over into our new program so that it makes it super smooth for the new people to come and join, so that it's not kind of a janky experience for them, because I also really care about the user experience there and I don't want to put people through that unnecessarily. So I do think in terms, just to sum it up, if you are interested in becoming a global community leader, which is the new branding of that, because we're going to want to do so much more than just meetups, I think that you definitely should apply. But keeping in mind, we're migrating right now. The meetup or the new events page is going to go live. Then we're going to start to get new people on there. And the San Francisco one, most definitely not the only one there.
It's available, right? And there are people that meet in person that you people organize. They meet in person in their own country.
Yes, exactly. And
because,
like the role of
I
someone.
think from my country,
Oh yeah,
yes, from my country, I think I am the only one who applied, so you should accept me.
So who are you gonna have in the meetup, yourself?
I will most definitely take a look.
I don't because you people have a search something. I found community in Filipino, I found community in America, obviously, and I found community everywhere. But I didn't find community in Saudi Arabia, so I applied. So you people should
Oh, you're
consider
in
that.
Saudi Arabia?
Saudi Arabia, yes.
Nice. That is so cool. Yeah, we need to spread the word there.
Yeah. Where did you think I am from?
I don't know. I thought Pakistan. I don't know why.
Don't forget about South America.
South America.
Yeah. I'm seeing a lot of traction here in Brazil specifically. Webflow is not huge here in Brazil yet, but it's growing a lot. I'm seeing a lot of companies discovering Webflow, being amazed by it. A lot of people, freelancers, discovering Webflow as well. Big part due to João Paulo, which was the brand designer at Webflow previously. He has a course here in Brazil. Everyone is crazy about it. So I'm seeing a lot of traction here in Brazil to create a community of Webflowers. So yeah, South America is also a good place to have a community.
And here you have it. There are people that live outside of the United States.
100%. And like, yeah, that's definitely, like I said, one of our really big goals is that globalization piece of it.
Yeah.
I think like with that program specifically, it's really about like making sure that if there are people that want to host those events, that we're surfacing that we're able to make it as easy as possible for people to find them.
All right. I have a few questions, Melissa, if you don't mind.
Okay, shoot the first one. You're not gonna get in the wait list.
Please, someone get an invite for this guy. I see him
He's
daily.
driving us crazy, Emily.
Yeah, he's driving us crazy.
Yeah,
it has been painful.
Emily is working on it, so I won't bring it up again for the rest of this call. Emily and I were talking about it. So moving on. Emily, now that you live in California, do you miss Canadian winters?
I definitely do actually miss Canadian winters. I know that people think that's super strange, but I love snow. And like I grew up teaching skiing was like literally my first job. So I'm no stranger from spending an abnormal amount of time in the snow. So I mean, I think definitely I do miss it. I think like right now we're in Seattle and moving back over to San Francisco because we were there for most of the pandemic and it got a little boring. But
nice. So you like moved and now you're okay. I'm back.
Yeah. It was a COVID move to explore a new place that was closer to mountains and nature and stuff than SF. But I do miss it. I miss Canada a lot. And I think there's like a huge part of me that like still like even in our channels and Slack, I've finessed my way into every Canadian channel, even though I don't live there.
Yeah, that's one thing I would hate about living in California is I would just miss the snow. Like I would want to go to like up to like Vancouver or something for like the winters, which just probably sounds crazy again because like people do the opposite. They go away from Canada during the winters.
Yeah, I tend to drive to Tahoe when I want snow, but it's significantly more difficult to get to than where I'm currently at in Seattle and my ability to drive like an hour somewhere and get a different climate.
Right.
Yeah.
You hate snow, you can come here. Promise you. You're never going to see it again.
All right. So for my second question, would you be open to creating a Webflow grant program for low-income freelancers so they can have the cost of the portfolio site plan and workspace plan covered, so that reduces the barrier to them entering the Webflow space?
I think that's a fantastic question, honestly. I think like we definitely like our first iteration of grants is definitely like the community grants one. That one is a little bit more specific towards like things that are going to help fund ideas that basically impact many people. So a little bit more around like educational content, workshops, like broader communities or extensions. However, it is actually something that we've spoken about, is just what are more things that we can kind of think through in terms of programming or areas in which that we can kind of help, whether it's for global impact, because let's face it, there's different needs and different things across the world, as well as different needs across the different parts of your career journey. But I do think like that specifically. Can't say that we have it directly on our roadmap right now, but it actually is like a really, really good point and fits in very nicely into some of the conversations that we're having right now about what are programs, what are things that we can have for people to apply to that makes it easier for some folks to create that journey. Because I think a lot of people, even internally at Webflow, myself included, are very drawn to the stories of people who made like a very serious change in their lives and were able to achieve that by learning skills or having a tool like Webflow. And if we can make that easier, it's incredible. I think that makes it really, really worthwhile. I really appreciate that idea, Ben, truly. And would love to kind of hear more about your thoughts or anything around there as well.
Yeah, I would love that. I'll shoot you a message on Slack and we can maybe meet about it the next couple of weeks and chat about it further.
Awesome. Thanks, Ben.
All right, now for my third and final question, since I know probably there's a lot more questions to be asked. And this is kind of a long one, so I'll say it slowly. In your personal opinion, is the Flow Party the best Webflow community? And if yes, do you feel that it has the right amount of flow, or should the previously mentioned flow be further magnified in order to maximize said flow for greater community engagement? And in conclusion, do you believe that there ain't no party like a Flow Party?
I didn't know where that was going at first. I'm so happy where it ended. That was fantastic. I am not. I'm going to give like both a political answer and then also like an Emily specific answer. Politically, cannot show favoritism towards communities. But what I can say is this community is exceptional. Like I have had such fantastic experiences with literally every single person that I've spoken to that have been part of it, the people that message about it, that have Flow Party literally in their descriptions on Twitter. Like it's so obvious that Melissa, the work that you and the Flow Party team, and of course Keith, of course, have been doing incredible things. And I think that there's definitely an appropriate level of flow in here, but there's always room for more flow, right? I think that's
I love that answer. Thank you so much, Emily. And thank you for what we talked about on Slack. I really do appreciate it.
No problem. Thanks so much, Ben.
Okay, who's next? We have the last 15 minutes and we're done. So take a leap. Who's the next one? Josh, you look like you want to ask a question.
Me?
Yeah. No?
No, sorry. I'm just
putting Josh
in my
on
nothing box right now. I'm just enjoying the show. I still can't get over that cat filter.
Hey, I love Snapchat. It's a perfect app because you can use these filters across a bunch of different meeting applications. It actually worked out really well for me once because I was in a Google Meet with a friend and then jumped into a client meeting in Zoom right after, and I forgot I had it on, this specific cat filter, and it actually locked down the client for me because the client loves cats. I could not stop laughing and asked me to keep the cat filter on during the client meeting. So it worked out really well.
It's honestly great. Like I've been on calls before where in particular for like parents who had like kids that had to go to school on their laptops for a little while. One of them, it was a client that I was working with, hopped on, did not know how to turn off the filter. His daughter was on it prior. And he was just a potato for literally the entire meeting that we had. And I kept telling him he could turn off the camera if he felt uncomfortable, but he was very panicked and didn't know what to do about it. And it was very amusing for me.
I feel like in the pandemic, a lot of people went through that. Like they didn't even know. And it's just like the little glasses, like changing like hands and cats. And
Speaking of filters, I might as well use mine.
That is
oh my God.
Amazing.
Oh, I do have a quick question, Emily. Good to see you again. How have you been like balancing? I'll take that off. Balancing just your schedule with like meeting with communities like this, and then also planning with the team, and then also prepping for Webflow Conf. Like, do you have a good rhythm? Do you have any good habits that you've put in place, or you're still kind of just figuring it out? Because it seems like you're doing a lot of heavy lifting with like so many different areas.
Yeah, I wish that I had like, oh, here's like my 10-step guide to balancing your time. If I had that solution, I be riding pretty for the rest of my life. But I can definitely say right now, like it's a lot of things, and like typically when I prioritize, it's like, oh, there's a very clear distinction between like this is a super high priority, this can kind of wait. But honestly, right now, everything feels like a really big, impactful priority. And so, candidly, only way I'm balancing caffeine. Naps also great. But
Wow.
I do think that a big element that kind of keeps me going here is like setting dedicated time every week. Like, here's how much I have allotted to like external. Here's how much that I need to get done for internal to like move these things on. How much for my team specifically, future teams specifically, like things like that. And time boxing has been helpful. But I also, similar to my answer around community, is like I view this as the beginning of any net new community initiative requires a ton of like your dedicated time. And so I view that just happens to be where I'm at right now. And I know it's going to transpire into things that are more scalable and more exciting as they continue to lay kind of post this foundation.
Oh, okay, Bree, go ahead. Thank you, Josh.
Okay. Hi, guys. Hi, Emily. I've my question kind of falls into the last question in your answer of like, what's your biggest challenge that you've been facing with this new position and like the life change, and how have you been like maneuvering through it in the best way?
Yeah, I think like the biggest challenge is genuinely like making sure like that like honestly there's just not enough hours in the day. There's like a million things that I want to do, and like it's so much harder to balance those things when you know like, oh, it's much easier when you're like building something net new and you're like, oh, if I build this thing, then like it has the potential of impacting like however many people. Right now it's like if I build this thing, it will immediately impact, and I can name like 20 people literally in my brain like who specifically that will help with. And that balance and knowing like the level of impact and like balancing what has the greatest impact on the most people is a totally different way of taking a look at prioritization, and trying to make sure that we're making good hiring decisions, that the team is well set up, that like the community feels very heard. And I know like I personally, I've said this to all of our chapter leaders in particular, who's been with me through this, the great migration to our new meetup system that we've dubbed it internally and also sometimes externally, is that I wish that we had more time just to constantly have more one-on-one conversations. And so I think like that part's been like the hardest part to balance. But thankfully, if that's the hardest part to balance, we're in a good position, because that means that we have a really good understanding of a number of other things that can help us to scale and prioritize the product and other programs that we're working on too.
Awesome. Zach, go ahead.
Sorry, you can go ahead, Zach.
Oh, hey, what's up, Emily?
Hey, Zach.
Hey, I have a question. You said, yeah, I know you're working kind of on a new community page. Do you think any of that, do you think that'll be self-contained, or do you think any of that will cross over into like your designer profile, or maybe into the dashboard where it would say that an event near you is happening in this week or something like that?
Okay. There's so many things to these things. Number one, I can't 100% talk about where the profiles are going.
I can cut this part.
Yeah,
so I talk with these ones. What I can say
you can tell us. We'll just cut it out. No one, everyone that joins the Webflow party has to sign an NDA.
Stays at the Webflow party. We're involved.
It's Fight Club rules. I would definitely say like those are things that we've spoken about, that are things that I've even pitched in my final presentation, because like I mentioned with that theme of discoverability, it's so important. It's like discoverability, a big way of impacting that is having dedicated real estate on different pages, different places that have different traffic find those things. And I do think that we are going to be in a really good spot with those over the course of the next few quarters, as we're making some pretty big changes to how everything kind of intermixes. And I'm more than happy to talk to you one-on-one about some of those things. But I
Awesome.
do think from that perspective, it's a huge reason why we are bringing a lot of things onto Webflow as an actual system versus having too many different separate owned platforms and entities outside of it.
Yeah. Cool. Thank you.
No problem.
So, Melissa, I just have one more quick question for Emily, kind of like touching on the topic that Bree brought on is, how do you handle, I'm trying to figure out the right way to word this question, like how do you handle always getting messages from community members that range from like, can you get me access to this beta, or like angry messages that are like, why the F did you guys do this? And like, even like, can you help me get a job at Webflow, stuff like that. So how do you handle always getting messages from the community members ranging from like really kind messages to like at the end of the scale, like really angry messages essentially?
Yeah, I think like honestly, it's hard. Like it's a hard reality of building a community. Like you're gonna get that. You open a feedback loop, it doesn't mean that feedback's gonna be positive all the time. I think that the best way that I personally try to handle that is like there is a difference, and like there's a huge human element to answering and being part of community. But I do think that, like, for example, with some of the more negative things, or when people are genuinely upset, like in a lot of moments, it's just about really making sure you have room to be heard and making sure that you're listening to those things, and that like it's my job to be a really strong advocate for those things. I won't always have the direct solutions in that moment, even if I do wish that I could for a lot of them. But I think my biggest thing is making sure that I regularly build trust with not just me, but everyone on my team, with the members on community, that you know that if you talk to one of us, like we are listening. And I felt that even more deeply with, I know a lot of people may have seen me answer some like meteor questions on the forum or on the Facebook group as of late. Like that, I think in order for me to even get to that point of empathy and trust, I first have to make sure that I show up. And so I view it kind of there right now. And for all of like the one-offs of, can I get into this beta? Can I do this thing? They're going to happen. I can't stop people from doing those things. But what I can do is, if that actually is something that's going to keep happening, how can we create programs that make that scalable, more accessible for folks? How are we more proactive with making sure if you're part of this community that you're considered on those things, maybe out of the gate, or have different ways of getting in?
Thank you so much. And okay, this is the last question. I promise the last question for me, even though I said it.
You're
like,
not giving opportunity to other people, Ben.
Okay, I promise this is the actual last question. I mean, what do you do to practice good mental health? Like, what do you have any self-care tips for like people in the community for like instances where you're feeling like really stressed, or when you just need like time away from like the community or away from your laptop and work and whatnot?
I mean, biggest recommendation always is time block it. Like, at least for me, I'm a calendar person. So I have dedicated rituals that like I don't compromise on. Like if I need to spend time with my partner, I will do that. If I need to walk away to go to the gym and go angrily walk on a treadmill for a bit, I'll do that. Or if I have an unhealthy habit of buying candles when I'm sad, I will also do that. And like, that's fine.
I wish that was mine. Mine is ice cream, so I get fat.
Okay, I feel you on that one too. I'm really close to a salty straw. They're really good.
Oh, no. Okay, guys, last question, and we have to get out because Emily's super busy today, I'm sure. So anybody has more? 3, 2, 1.
Well, if no one else has questions, I can ask another one.
Hi, Ben.
What do you think about the idea of creating like a community advisory board or a committee? So basically, like members of the community that kind of serve as like a sounding board in the sense, and then also kind of like a focus group type thing for like Webflow products like Logic memberships and whatever else.
Yeah, I can confidently say we've already started piloting programs like that, and it's something that like is directly on my roadmap of things that like is a very high priority for me to get set up. I think that it's a huge opportunity to make sure that we have a really good representation of folks that play with the tool, know the tool in different aspects, and can provide that feedback. So in short, yes, we're thinking about it, we're doing it. We'll be expanding that.
And one more question. Seeing as you're from Toronto, do you ever see yourself like encouraging Webflow to open a Canadian office, specifically in Toronto?
We did.
That would actually be cool.
It's open.
Oh, it is? Oh, there is a Toronto office?
We do have a Toronto office. I think it's like a week old. Like it's like literally.
Oh wow.
Oh wow. Is it mainly like engineers and stuff like that?
It
Or
is
like a
not
mix of everyone?
engineers right now. We do want like we do have a pretty large amount of Canadians that work at Webflow, which I was so surprised about. And
that's why everybody's nice.
And I do have another Canadian joining my team too. Again, no spoilers.
Nice.
Yeah, I think in short, yeah, I think there's lots of room for that type of expansion. There's a lot of Canadians, a lot of more ways that we're trying to think about expanding the team. But that office right now, so small. It's just the starting point. They're trying to figure out what's next.
Okay.
Awesome.
All right, I'm officially done now. Thank you so much, Emily, for answering all my questions.
No problem.
Thank you for coming to your interview. No, I'm kidding. Well, Emily, thank you so much for coming. You're always welcome to come. This was so fun. I hope you enjoyed it. And you can leave with a message to everybody here or whatever you want. I don't know, a plug, anything.
I think my biggest plug is if you're interested in setting up something locally or you need some support, please do try to get involved with our Global Leads program or the Worldwide Webflow program. I think it's going to be a fantastic just re-energization of what is happening around the world. And I already want to thank so many people that are on this call that I know are already doing those events. So thank you to everyone. Thanks so much for having me, Melissa.
No, thank you for coming. It was awesome. Thank you so much. So we usually stay here on the after party, so you can carry on with your day and we'll just stay here chatting about the interview. Thank you so much, Emily.